What's the scariest paranormal experience you have ever had? I was very pissed at my siblings and I asked my dead mother for 5 minutes of her time. All of a sudden the clock radio went on. It hadn't been used as a radio since my mom died. After I checked and the radio was in the off position. I wish I hadn't been so freaked out that I wolf talked to her. Be careful what you wish for. Maybe this one. I was home alone with my sister. She was in another room, and I was walking out of the kitchen when someone said, "Should we tell her?" And I replied, "Tell what?" before I realized there was nobody beside me, and also I didn't know the voice. My sister then asked me what I was saying, because she only heard my reply. It's pretty common and normal to hear voices sometimes. I also do hear such things. It's just your brain pressing the buttons. Saw ghosts crawling across the room at night. It was just passing cars in the curtain. Had me in the second half NGL. Passing cars in the curtain is scary. I used to have this reoccurring dream where this black figure with no face would visit me and try to possess me. It would typically enter my being through my mouth, and at that point I would have no control over my dream. It would tell me to do terrible things to people, and it had a scratchy voice. The weirdest part, that every time it would be inside me, I physically would feel ill. I would wake up with the same feeling, oftentimes vomiting right away. The last time this happened must have been 3 years ago. This reminds me of Babadook. Told this story on a previous similar thread, but here goes. Was 9 years old. My whole family decided to sleep together in the living room because we wanted to watch a late night TV program. I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night, and in the corner of my eye I could see Mom was sitting in the adjacent room, brushing her long hair. All the lights in the house were off, so I thought to myself, what is Mom doing brushing her hair in the dark? A few seconds later, to my horror I saw that my mom was still asleep, right next to me. I also just realized one major detail. Mom's hair was short. I looked at the figure again, and she was still there from where I was. All I could see was her back sitting on the sofa. I immediately hid under my blanket, my whole body shivering and trembling for what felt like forever until I fell back asleep. Told everybody in the morning. Nobody believed me. To this day I still remember that figure. Tried to convince myself I was dreaming, but no, it was very real. I had one similar, might have been around the same age, I'd say 7 to 9. I was sleeping in the floor area just outside my room because I wanted to. I remember seeing a shadow of what I thought was my dad in a chair reading a newspaper. This is in a mobile home, so I could see where my parents would normally sit. The room it was in was completely dark, and I was wondering why he would be reading the paper in the dark. I remember the figure seemed to notice me looking at it and got up coming my way, and that's all I remember of that. I always have had a lot of crazy dreams, but for some reason, that one stood out as almost real. I used to live in this old apartment complex in Hollywood. I never had and problems in the first apartment. I lived the second one. I would often wake up and find my apartment filled with gnats, or I'd wake up, sit up and be swatting at them. And then it was like I really woke up and they were gone. I'd often lose things, only to find them right where I'd been looking. The worst was this large blue tea pitcher I had just bought. I got home from the store, and after getting settled, I started looking for it to make tea. Couldn't find it anywhere. I checked my receipt and verified I had actually bought it. I looked everywhere, even stupid places it wouldn't have been. On the third pass coming out of the back bedroom, I saw it sitting in the middle of the living room. It couldn't have been there the whole time, because I would have tripped on it, like I had literally stepped in the same spot at least 3 to 4 times. One night, not long before I moved, I was sleeping on the couch. I woke up, but you know how you're awake, but you don't get up or open your eyes? I heard the buzzing of gnats and didn't want to deal with it immediately. I opened my eyes and the whole apartment was bathed in this cold blue moonlight, and there was an old man standing by the couch, staring at me. There were gnats everywhere. He looked like a hobo. He didn't look angry, just a little sad. We locked eyes, and then he turned and walked towards the back bedroom. The gnats went with him, and the blue light faded. I couldn't move or breathe for a few seconds. Once I could, I first checked the front door, which was locked. I then went to the back to make sure there wasn't anyone there, which there wasn't. After that, the gnats and flies never returned, and I moved soon after for unrelated reasons. I feel like the ghosty resident of your house felt you will move and was sad about it. The flies and gnats are a little bit of unsettling, though. Bodmin Jail in Cornwall. So many unexplained things happened. Terrifying but kinda cool. So many unexplained things happened. Interesting. Mind sharing examples? I've always been skeptical of psychics, but I feel like my brother is psychic. The problem is he's severely autistic, and while he can talk, he can't express himself like the rest of us can, so it's not like I can ask him about it. There were so many times where I was thinking about something and then he'd just say it out loud. But the creepiest one was when he woke my parents up at 4 AM to tell them, Grandma Smith is old and is going to die. They got the call later on that day that indeed she had died in her sleep. A few years ago, when I still lived with my parents, they had all gone camping for the weekend. I opted to stay home and kept our senile poodle dog home with me. It was pretty hot in the house because it was summertime, and I remember leaving my bedroom door open to get better airflow from my fan. Late at night I was scrolling my phone and I watched this bright blue orb of light come out of the hallway and float right towards my fan and then disappear. I kind of just stared at it in disbelief that I saw what I had saw, until my almost blind and deaf dog jumped up from sleeping in the corner of my room and started growling and freaking out at the exact same spot I just watched the orb disappear at. I slept on Skype with a friend and all the house lights on that night. Maybe ball lightning? It's incredibly rare, so we don't really understand it. I was alone at home with my 2-year-old one night. He was sleeping in his own bedroom, and I was in mine. I got woken up at 1:30 am by the noise of my wooden bedroom door creaking open. It's unfortunately a very noisy door. I saw a white hand pushing it open, but it was high off the ground, much higher than that of a 2-year-old could reach. I called out my son's name and the hand quickly retracted. After some hesitation I got out of my bed eventually, half asleep and confused, wondering if it might have been my husband having returned home early. But my husband wasn't in the hallway passage and the security door at the other end of the hallway was still closed. I then noticed smoke was coming out of my son's dimly lit room. I entered the room and saw that my son was tucked in his bed and fast asleep. Then I spotted the origin of the smoke. The bottom of his bedroom window curtain was somehow inside his nightlight/bed lamp, which was open at the top, and it had just begun to catch fire with a tiny flame slowly growing. I pulled out the curtain and quickly suffocated the flame by blowing on it and slapping it. I did not wake up my son. I put the bed lamp somewhere out of reach of the curtain. In believe wind came in through the window and blew the curtain, so that when it settled back down it settled on top of and inside the lamp. I never found out whose hand that was, and my son the next day was completely oblivious to the events. My husband said it was a guardian angel. There were some other smaller unexplainable occurrences after that. One time my son lost my glasses. After playing with them, I told him he had to find them, or else he would get punished. A while later some parts lid fell off inside a cupboard with a loud clanging sound, and when I opened the cupboard my glasses were in there. I told this to the wife of our pastor and she warned me there is no such thing as benevolent ghosts, and that is most certainly an evil presence trying to win our favor. She said she would pray for our house during her next prayer group session. She didn't. We never experienced any such paranormal events again. White hand? Sounds like a domovoi or didac or another dozen names of the same phenomena. It's a guardian of the house, not a ghost. Sometimes described also as appearing as a cat or an old man, too. Basically, usually considered as a benevolent entity, and normally doesn't show up unless in an emergency, which this was definitely a case. They say they appreciate when you take good care of the house you live in, and have a reputation as intervening to protect pets and children. Basically, prayers won't hurt them, as they aren't considered as evil, and normally they don't ever show up, except in really exceptional circumstances.